Hello, and welcome to Samples of Science Cuisine. I'm your host, Shaughnessy, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea behind this podcast. This podcast was created to help you learn about different majors and professions and paths that you can take to get to them. You will hear interviews from professors, undergraduate students, graduate students, and professionals. As the listener, whether you're a high school student, PhD graduate, or anything in between, please follow the social media at SOSC Podcast, and you can request topics to be covered in the podcast, request questions to be asked during interviews, and see sneak peeks from upcoming episodes. I figured before diving into interviews with everyone else, you might want to hear my journey of how I got to the point I am at today. I'm a college senior in the major Immunology and Medical Microbiology at West Virginia University. I'm also part of the Honors Excel program. This program is designed to give undergraduate students the opportunity to run their own project. College research and project development is often run by professors or another professional, and undergraduates rarely get to be in charge of any part of the project. This does make sense when it comes to more advanced projects that require years of development and require grant funding. Regardless, it can be frustrating for some students, including me, so I enrolled in the Honors Excel program at WVU. Designing my own project seemed very appealing to me. Let me take you back to how I got started on my journey. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my brother had to get his tonsils removed. He was younger than me, and they did tours of the hospitals for the younger kids, so they're not so scared. I went with my brother and parents on this tour, and I didn't know what to expect. They took us right into the operating room and showed us the lights and the mask and the environment, and then they introduced an anesthesiologist, and they explained what they do. I was hooked immediately. For our career pictures in my kindergarten class, I drew an anesthesiologist. My teacher was shocked, and she even had to look up how to spell the word. From that point, I wanted to be a doctor. I switched from anesthesiologist to oncologist to orthopedic surgeon and a few others. I had my heart set on medical school when I graduated high school. I graduated high school in the top 20 of my class. I had spent much of high school studying and building up my resume with sports and volunteering. I didn't really tend to focus on exploring my opportunities for college until my junior year of high school. My guidance counselor took some of the junior class to a college career fair in the city. I stumbled across WVU at the end of the fair. The booths were organized in alphabetical order, so I was worn out by the time I got to WVU. I picked up a packet with all the majors and half listened to the recruiter's spiel and walked to the bus. I didn't look at the packet until a few days later when I was going through the stack of papers instead of doing my homework. Procrastination, am I right? I was looking through the list of majors and I found Immunology and Medical Microbiology, also referred to as IMMB. Originally, I had been planning on going into biochemistry. Medical school was still the plan, and the IMMB major had all the requirements for medical school built into the major, so that was a selling point. I had to retake my ACT to get into the major, and it required some tutoring to get my score up to the level needed. I got my score back, and it was what I needed, so I enrolled in the major. I got my acceptance letter, and I could not have been more excited. I was excited to get out of the classroom and into the lab learning about microorganisms and really focusing on topics I love the most. And then COVID hit. This was horrible. I graduated high school during COVID in 2020. After March 13th, I did not see any of my friends. We didn't have a prom, a senior trip, or any senior activities. My graduation was a drive-through. I felt like I got cheated out of everything from my senior year. My college freshman orientation was online. It was helpful, but I wanted an experience of walking around campus and experiencing the college environment. It felt like a shock when my mom and brother dropped me off at college and left. I did cry because I was terrified, and I started second-guessing going to school 4 hours away from home. I had a roommate, and she helped out a lot. She was in the same major as me, and it helped not being alone during my first semester. I did not leave my dorm room unless it was for food or my lab class. Even if I did leave for my lab class, they didn't happen very much because every 2 to 3 weeks someone got sick with COVID and the whole class had to quarantine. It was hard and I felt very isolated, and it was difficult to adjust to the way college was supposed to be. I tried to join some clubs, but the meetings were all on Zoom, and this got very draining after a while. Looking at my computer for 13 hours a day was very exhausting. The only person I really knew was my roommate. We're still very close friends today, but we bring up the fact that our freshman year wasn't great. The gym on campus wasn't open either, so I would go on walks outside of my residence hall. These walks kept me sane, and it was nice to go outside every day. Still, it didn't really feel like the college experience, and I wanted to change that. So after my freshman year of classes, I, I applied for the process to become a resident assistant, and I got accepted. And this began the next part of my journey. Being a resident assistant gave me the opportunity to make friends. I made many really close friends throughout my 2 years as an RA. This helped me develop skills such as leadership, teamwork, and time management. Now, with time management, I really struggle on that front. It's been something I have struggled with since my sophomore year of high school. The COVID pandemic didn't help with improving this skill. Being a resident assistant taught me to create a schedule that helped keep me organized and prioritize my coursework. I would say this is a really important skill that I learned in college. Being a resident assistant is a crazy job. You are responsible for 20 plus residents and planning programs, being consistent with rules, and keeping the residents safe. I was always busy and stressed out. I stopped being a resident assistant after my junior year. The job taught me so much, but I wanted to develop myself more in my major related classes and increase my professional skills during my senior year. My senior year of college. This is the year I'm in right now, and I'm graduating in May of 2024. I am very excited to graduate and continue my educational journey. So far this year, I have been keeping myself busy. I am volunteering at the hospital here in West Virginia University, and it's called Ruby Memorial. I'm also working on my research projects, which are my Honor Excel project, and I'm in a research lab this semester. I'm very excited about being involved in the research lab at WVU, being that it is an R1 university. I'm in the Vaccine Development Center with Dr. Heath Dambrin and Dr. Mariette Barbier. I have taken classes from both these professors before, and I enjoy them both. You would think jumping into a lab after only experiencing laboratory environments in a classroom setting would be overwhelming. Contrary to belief, I did not jump right into the lab and get started with experiments. I worked for several weeks on getting comfortable in the lab environment and improving my lab skills. I've also been reading papers and developing methods for the project I was working on. And I'm still reading papers to this day. That never stops. I never really knew how I would like being in the lab, and this was my first time being in an official research lab throughout my college career. I loved that everyone is working on something different and that all the projects are in different phases. Being in the lab very much improved my skills in the classroom and in my lab courses as well. Right now, I am working with Dr. Heath Dambrin and a graduate student on mRNA vaccines, adjuvants, and plasmids. And mRNA vaccines are a new development in biological science, as we've seen with the COVID vaccine. The Vaccine Development Center at WVU is working on creating vaccines for several different infectious diseases and for adjuvants. Working in the lab is not performing experiments every day and watching reactions bubble and explode. A lot of my time in the lab is spent documenting results, learning different techniques, and waiting for reactions to finish. I spend a lot of time waiting, lots of incubation times, waiting for fluids to move across the barrier. But in that time, I can start other reactions and experiments or finish up documentation or help other members in the lab with their projects. Working in the lab has taught me proper documentation skills, time management, and given me the confidence to ask questions, even if I feel like I sound stupid. I'm about to graduate college with my bachelor's in immunology and medical microbiology and with a minor in medical humanities and health studies. That is crazy to say. Now, have I enjoyed my major? Yes and no. Obviously, the classes were hard. I had to take Organic Chemistry 1 and 2, and they were both extremely hard. I'm going to be completely transparent here. I failed Organic Chemistry 1 the first time. This was very challenging, and I did not feel confident in completing my major. I even started looking at other majors, including public health and laboratory diagnostics. I was going to switch my major, but my mom was the one who talked me out of it and told me to retake Organic Chemistry 1. I listened to her, and I got an A. I was amazed. I passed Organic Chemistry 2 and Biochemistry. Then I was done with my non-major specific courses. I really enjoyed all of my immunology courses. I found them really interesting and I loved the material. I am very excited to graduate with this degree and for the opportunities it's going to offer me. Immunology is such a new field in science that there is endless opportunities for me to pursue as a career. In the future, I plan to take a year and continue to work in this lab in the Vaccine Development Center. I want to get more research experience and take some time to figure out my next steps. My overall career goal is to be a college professor. I like to teach people how to do things. In order to achieve this goal, in 5 years, I see myself almost completed with my PhD program of choice. Recently, I have been looking into microbiology and immunology programs. The next milestone is 10 years, in which I see myself gaining experience in the field of immunology by either working in a lab or doing field work like epidemiology or other things. I want to have a family with kids and a dog. I am a very big dog person. And I know that I can achieve my personal goals of having a family with kids and a dog, along with my educational goals, which being a college professor is at the top of my list. Kind of switching gears a bit, I want to talk about my biggest failure and my biggest success. So, my biggest failure throughout my entire life has been doubting myself. I know this kind of seems a little bit broad, but if you told high school me that I would be working in the Vaccine Development Center at R1 University, she would not have believed you. In fact, she probably would have laughed in your face. I doubted myself when getting accepted to WVU. I doubted myself when taking organic chemistry the first time. I have doubted myself a dozen times over. And it's not hard to, but sometimes I think back and I wonder what opportunities I would have had if I didn't doubt myself. On the flip side of this, my biggest success has been working in the Vaccine Development Center. Originally, my plan was to take the vaccinology course instructed by my research professor, Dr. Heath Dameron, but it turns out that the course was not going to be offered. Instead, he sent out an email asking if anyone would want to take some research credit in his lab. I was questioning whether or not I would want to. I was anxious about the idea of working in a lab and working with people who are so much smarter than me. I remember sitting on the bus looking at the email, wondering if I should. I decided to email him back and say yes. I was so anxious to send that email, but it turned out to be a really good decision. Well, that's my backstory. Now you know how I got to where I am today. During later episodes, you will hear interviews from professors, professionals, and other students about their lives in STEM fields and how they got to where they are today. One tip I have for you during this podcast is to just listen and follow the journeys of the people that are telling their story. I promise you that you will end up in a career that you love. It just might take you a longer path compared to everybody else. Also, Kind of a funny side note, but my favorite cuisine is Italian and Mexican, but not together. I do love me some pasta, and I love some enchiladas. I hope you enjoyed listening. Give me a subscribe and hit that like button if you did. See you next time.